Hello, everybody. Welcome back into another edition of Prime Sports World. On the eve of the start of the NFL season, we're going to be swinging back into the NBA with a little bit of NBA conversation, as the NBA season is not that far away, my friends. It'll be here before we even know it. I'm, of course, your host, David On Point, helping right. My co-host is eventually going to join me, Mr. TJ Hopkins, and hopefully the CEO of Prime Sports World, Mr. Israel Rivera, will also join me on the show. So please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast if you guys like what you're seeing and what you are hearing. Also, let me know down in the comments section if you're a fan of one of these 5 teams in the Central. Who is your team? We got to know. We're obviously Bulls fans here in Chicago. Actually, I was in Chicago, but now I live in Fort Wayne. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, let me know what you think about the Central. If this is one of your favorite teams, please put it down in the comments section. And welcome into the show, my co-host, Mr. TJ Hopkins. And I know it's weird to do an NBA show before the start of the NFL season, but NBA is going to be here. Like this, the opening, like we're like a month and a half away from the start of the NBA season. So we thought we'd get fun to kind of start breaking down some of these teams before the season starts, as like we did with the NFL. Welcome to the show, TJ. How are you?
What's up, man? I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. It's hard to be upset when NFL is 24 hours away from being back, and I'm only like 24 hours away from having wings for dinner. So I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well.
Of course.
So without wasting any more time, let's swing right into the first team in the Eastern Central Division. We got the Milwaukee Bucks, the reigning number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. Ooh, my bad. Obviously, the starters there: Drew Holiday, Grayson Allen, Chris Middleton, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Brook Lopez. Somehow I got left him off on the street there. I'll add him in a second. Their key reserves is basically the same team as they had last year. I think, adding Malik Beasley is the only real piece that they added. Basically brought back the same roster. Patrick Connaughton, Bobby Portis, Jay Crowder, Malik Beasley, AJ Green, Marjan, and Beauchamp is their key reserves. Head coach Adrian Griffin, as Mike Budenholzer was fired after their first round exit in the playoffs last year, 58-24. Let's talk about some season storylines when it comes to the Milwaukee Bucks.
Season storylines. Obviously, Giannis is Giannis is pending free agency or something like that.
Well, he's always eligible for an extension, so he's not technically, so he's not a free agent until 2025, which is 2 seasons from now. But
Okay.
he's eligible for like a crazy super max extension next offseason that will make him the highest paid player in the NBA. Or him and
Well,
him and
he's
him and Jason
he's
Tatum will be them.
yeah. He's
So
also stated that he's not signing. Like, if he doesn't like the direction that the organization is going, he's not signing that extension.
yeah,
Um, so you got that. Obviously, like the championship window, bouncing back after a first round exit um, against the Miami Heat. You're on the wrong side of history. You're one of the few 1 seeds to be bounced by an 8 seed, regardless of how it happened or why it happened. It happened. Can't take it away from them. You can't erase it. You can't play the what if game. Like the woulda could, like if Giannis didn't hurt his back, yeah, whatever. Um, yeah, I think that's pretty much all you got. And obviously, Adrian Griffin, new head coach. He's bought his time. He's been an assistant for God knows how long. How do you replace championship level head coach and Mike Budenholzer? Because if you come up short again, there like the finger point is going to be at you. Rookie head coach,
yep.
championship level roster. They're going to be asking questions like, was he in over his head?
So yeah,
Um,
as a first year head coach, like this is a pretty ballsy job to take, right? Like this is a team that has
Absolutely.
champion aspirations. Like anything less than a championship is considered a disappointment in your first season as an NBA coach. Like that is quite the pressure to be under as a first year head coach. And like, what do we expect Adrian Griffin? Like, what do we expect out of him? Like the difference between him and Mike Budenholzer.
I expected to. As a former player, I would hope he would have a better sense of crunch time situations. Like we saw a lot, especially in that series against the Heat, about the Bucks. And I guess it was just the underlying storyline for most of last season because there were games that they ended up losing that they had no business losing. Right? They let a Bulls team take them to overtime. They lost that game to the Bulls. They let just that series against the Heat. There were moments like that you had timeouts and you're not using them in clutch situations. Like you can't take those timeouts with you.
And on top of that, I mean, they let big leads slip away in back-to-back playoff games. Yeah, it was a bad look for Mike Budenholzer. Adrian Griffin should bring a tenacity, should bring a toughness, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Let's talk about best and worst case scenario for Milwaukee Bucks. What is the best and worst case scenario for this squad?
Obviously, best case scenario is what you said, right? You go to the finals. Not necessarily.
You hoist the Larry O'Brien trophy. That's the best case scenario. Like this team is good enough to have that be an outcome.
You go to the finals. Worst case scenario is what just happened, first round exit, because I know social media is like, again, this is one of the worst things about social media and like sports talk in general, because social media has allowed everyone to have a platform and have a say. You got folks out there photoshopping Giannis in Bulls jerseys and Knicks jerseys and Lakers jerseys, and it's just like, stop. Like, let's just take things one. Let's just take things one step at a time. But I will say this: Giannis is in the perfect market because he's not getting crucified over his comments. Like you remember what he said when they lost, like that he was asked, was this season considered a failure? And he said, no, Michael Jordan played 15 years. He only won 6 championships. Was every season a failure? You can't say that shit in Chicago, New York, and LA.
It's true. But I mean, yeah, I agree with you. Worst case scenario for Milwaukee is obviously, you have some injuries and maybe you potentially don't make the playoffs. And then you have a really interesting dilemma next offseason where Giannis is eligible for a supermax extension. As soon as he decides not to sign it, that clock is ticking.
The clock is ticking fast.
The clock is ticking fast about what you're going to try to get for him in trade compensation, because there are already teams right now setting up themselves to offer a treasure trove of assets for Giannis. I mean, you got the New York Knicks who have like 3 first-round picks plus a plethora of young talent. You'll have the Oklahoma City Thunder who also have a plethora of young talent and some first-round picks that they could also move. There are tons of
You
teams
got
that would be.
Houston.
Houston, another team that has young talent and picks. Brooklyn has some interesting young talent and some picks. Like there are teams that could, if they could trade for Giannis right now and give up like what literally anything on their like the Oklahoma City Thunder would give up their entire war chest of assets to get him. Like if they him and SGA would be fun to watch. But yeah, like so. But if you win a title, all of these conversations just kind of
And
end. Like the title window is not closing. I think you have some real question marks about Chris Middleton, his health. Drew
yep.
Holiday has played down the stretch there. So yeah, we'll see what ends up happening with Milwaukee.
Like,
If
and
you're
like
Milwaukee,
the only scenario I can see, like, with, so, like, let's just say they do win the title and Giannis still ends up leaving. There's no one that should be upset with him because he's did something for that franchise that no other superstar outside of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Oscar Robertson did for you, right? So, like, if Giannis wins a chip again for Milwaukee and he decides to, like, all right, I've done all I can here, I want to play somewhere else. Bucks fans should wholeheartedly be like, you know what, you've earned that right. Thank you. We'll see you next time. We'll see you is your jersey retirement, that
yeah.
type thing.
So we'll see what ends up happening. Moving on from Milwaukee, let's talk about the second team. They finished second in this division. We got the Cleveland Cavaliers after they made their big trade in the offseason. They come back with basically a very similar roster as what they had before. By the way, that's going to be a trend here when it comes to this division because nobody
Yeah.
really shook up their roster all that much. Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Max Strus coming over to the Miami Heat. Evan Mobley and Jared Allen are their starters. Their key reserve, Karis LeVert, Isaac Okoro, Ricky Rubio, Georgian Duang, Damian Jones, Dean Wade, and Amani Bates, who I know TJ's high on. I'm also pretty high on him too. Their head coach, JB Bickerstaff, 51-31 last season as they were bounced in the first round as well from the upstart New York Knicks. So let's talk about some storylines when it comes to Cleveland Cavaliers.
Obviously, first round playoff exit. I just think it was just a bad matchup. Like, the Knicks were just a bad draw for them. Like, their bigs couldn't handle the speed of the Knicks bigs. Like, Evan Mobley's nice, but he ain't got the speed to match up with Julius Randle, nor does he have the bricks in the back pocket to handle the load that is Julius Randle. Same thing with Jared Allen. He nice, but he's not as like he's not as strong and he's not as big as Mitchell Robinson.
He was also woeful in that playoff series.
So, and when you get to the playoffs, like we see it, and I think that's where his JB Bickerstaff's inexperience show. Like, it's not often that Tom Thibodeau outcoaches other coaches,
Yeah,
especially in playoff situations, right? We normally see Tom Thibodeau's teams get severely limited in playoff matches because his X's and O's, as David likes to bring up, aren't necessarily the best. Season start, yeah, do it again, 51-31, right? Repeat.
Well, I
Get
think
back in
I
the.
think another mini storyline that's not necessarily maybe sort of on the horizon here is Donovan Mitchell. Like they know they traded a hefty load for him, but he's not tied to that team past 2025. And if this team struggles, if this team gets bounced in the first round, that same conversation that we're having with the Milwaukee Bucks, we're having with the Cleveland Cavaliers too. And they have big time questions at the wing. I mean, Max Strus was really good in the playoffs, but he was just okay in the regular season, and you're expecting him to be your wing, the guy who's going to solidify your starting lineup. That's a lot to ask for a guy who's just.
But at the same time, like, while he was like, I ain't even gonna say he was good in the playoffs. He was not like
he was inconsistent. He had moments where he was excellent, and then there were other moments where he disappeared,
and you can't have that. Like, Miami went to the finals last year, and he had games where it was, if he scored 10 points, that was a good game. You feel me? But obviously, I think with their I think one thing they need to figure out outside of the future with Donovan Mitchell is is Karis LeVert, like, is he a part of your future core? Right? I don't know. Karis LeVert's been brought up in trade rumors pretty much since he
It's true.
pretty much since
Since he
he's
got
been back.
it's true. It's basically since he's been in the NBA, Karis LeVert's been in trade rumors. Let's be real.
Uh, can Isaac Okoro become a two-way player? Can he? Because when he's on the court, he's an offensive liability. So it's 4-on-5 on the offensive end. Can Ricky Rubio become that backup point general that you need him to be? Can
Yeah,
Imani Bates crack this rotation? And
I
that's a sit.
I think he's going to play legitimate minutes. I know we talked about when he's summer league, but I think he's going to play legitimate minutes this season.
I mean, hey, like we can think that, but at the same, so like that's what I'm getting at. So who does he play over? Again,
Uh, I
that's what
mean,
I'm getting. So he's
depending
a
what you
two. He's a
what you,
2-3 combo, right? He's a two
yeah.
three because he ain't got the bricks in his back pocket to be a 4, right? So he's trying to get minutes from Donovan Mitchell at that 2 spot, Max Strus at the 2/3 spot, Karis LeVert at the 2/3 spot, Okoro and Niang and Dean Wade at the 3 spot.
I think if Isaac Okoro and Max Strus and Karis LeVert, if they all struggle on the offensive end of the basketball, because I don't, you're not worried about defense. I think Karis LeVert, Isaac Okoro, they're fantastic defensive players. But if you can bring in Imani Bates and have him be just like your straight microwave type player who gives you just firepower off the bench, and all you have to do is ask him to score, I think he can do that in bunches. But yeah, we'll see. Best case scenario when it comes to the Cleveland Cavaliers this season.
You make it to the second round. Basically, because based off what they did last season, obviously, when you go to the second round, that's an improvement over what you did the previous season, right? You divisional, and then obviously the matchups get a little tougher in the divisional, so then you're probably going home in the second round. Excuse me. Best case scenario for this version of the Cleveland Cavaliers, they go to the second round, then they go home.
This is going to sound erroneous, but I actually think the ceiling of this Cleveland Cavaliers team is losing in the NBA Finals. I think that they have the guard play to get them, and I think Evan Mobley is going to get a year better. I expect him to get a year better offensively as well. This is a team that could make a run to the finals if
That's
things
cute.
fall the right way. If they get the right matchups, I think this is a scenario where they're playing in the finals. Do I think they can win the finals? No, not necessarily, but I think there's a real scenario where Cavaliers playing in the finals for the first time since LeBron was there. But I think on the other hand, their worst case scenario is, this team doesn't take the steps forward that you want them to take. And Max Strus doesn't really fit as the 3, this all permanent starting 3 for this roster. And they make the play in.
They plateau.
I think that's a legitimate possibility is they're a play-in team next season. Is the worst case scenario.
Well, you got a lot of faith in the Cleveland Cavaliers thinking they can go to the finals. That's whew.
Yeah, but
it's a lot of faith there. I ain't got it.
I never said that I thought that was actually going to happen. When we talk about best case scenario, I'm talking about their best case scenario. Their best case scenario is they can make it to the finals.
Their best case scenario is them going to the second round. They're not good enough to go to the finals. It's just not happening.
We'll see. Their worst case scenario, yeah, I think they're a play-in team is the worst case scenario. I don't think they fall out of that threshold.
Like, they're more likely to do that than go to the finals.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. Moving on from there, we got our hometown team. We got the Chicago Bulls returning most of the roster that they had last season, plus Torrey Craig. Obviously, the starters, Alex Caruso, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Patrick Williams, and Nikola Vucevic. Key reserves, Javon Carter, who they added in free agency, Kobe White, Dalen Terry going into his second season, Torrey Craig, Andre Drummond, Ayo Dosunmu, who they also re-signed this offseason, and Terry Taylor, who I don't know a whole lot about. Billy Donovan still the head coach. They were 40-42 last season. CJ, what are we expecting from the Chicago Bulls when it comes to storylines? What are we talking about?
Best case storylines, Billy Donovan on the hot seat. Obviously, AK and Mark Eversley didn't hire did they? Yeah, they did. They hired Billy Donovan, and you already know that most GM and president of operations tandems, like they ain't got a problem firing folks that don't get the job done. This is not. Hopefully, this is not the Gar Pax regime that will just because they like you and you're like you're a good guy. When we go out and have a beer, you're fun to be around. That keeps your job. Like nah, I hopefully them days is over. Hopefully that AK and them, like if they don't see the progress that they are meant to see, that they mean to see, that they talked about seeing, that moves are going to be made, and that's the new regime. And that's I like Bulls fans are point five away, maybe closer, point five away, maybe closer to being what the basketball version of what Sox fans are. And if you haven't paid attention to what I'm talking about, Sox fans are showing up to White Sox games with banners saying Jerry sell the team. Right? Like that's where Bulls fans are at. Like they are that close to showing up to the United
Man,
Center.
I've been saying that for 5 years, basically since you've known me, that
Like they
the Bulls will not ever really reach their full potential until he no longer owns the team.
and so like that that's what it is. So Billy Donovan's going into the season kinda on the hot seat.
Not
And
kind of, not kind of is.
no, like because like what I say kind of it's like if they get out to a good start and they maintain that, and like it basically if Billy Donovan gets this team to the playoffs, not to play in the playoffs, his job is safe. I'm fairly certain if he gets one of those top six seeds, his job is safe.
I'll
Um,
agree with you on that.
right. If he's play in or misses the play in, like if he's play in or worse, he's out of here. Plain and simple. Storyline number two: Pat Williams, Kobe White, Io. All right, it's time. Y'all gotta take them steps forward, especially the first two. Like, cause Io came in as a rookie and made strides that we never saw with Kobe White. Like
True.
Io was on the court
I
and
mean, Io DeSumo was able to be the starting point guard for stretches when after Lonzo Ball went out, and we were never able to start Kobe
he,
White for any kind of stretch positive at all.
like not consistently, right?
Yeah,
Um, like Pat Williams, you have all the tools to be special. We see it. But that's the thing. Like we're tired of seeing flashes. We're tired of seeing glimpses here. Like we're tired of seeing you take we see flashes that you have a game where like you rebound over somebody, you just sky up, you take the ball, you take it the length of the court, and then you dunk it on the other end. Like we're tired. Like do that shit all the time because we know you can do it.
I mean, he's averaging 10 points a game for a guy who was a top four pick. He's been super underwhelming as a top four pick for
No,
this
no,
for the
no,
Bulls
no,
team.
no. Don't get me wrong. Like one of those years is marred by
Yeah. Obviously, he was injured for whatever season it was,
his
21,
second year, his
22.
sophomore,
Yeah, he
so
only
like his
played
sophomore
17 games
year.
that season.
Right, your
Um,
sophomore year, you missed 70 some games, right? Like that, like so that's the watch. Like this season here, hey man, you got to come out the gate. You got to give us 15 and 5. You
I
give
agree
us
with you on that.
you give us 15,
And
maybe like
I would also like to see him become a better playmaker. I mean, he's never averaged more than an assist and a half a game. I'd like to see you get up that number up to three assists. But yeah, all of these young guys of the Chicago Bulls, because the Bulls seem very committed to just running this back over and over and over and over and over, and until like some of these young players, because
it's also
the only way you're ever going to get a different result from this Chicago Bulls team when you keep running the same thing back is if these young guys that are on this roster become
they got to
difference
step
makers.
up,
Yeah,
but
like
it's
we know what we're gonna get out of DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine,
and
Nikola
Vooch.
Vucevic. Like we know what we're gonna get out of those guys. All the wild card stuff is everyone else. Like if those other players on this roster can step up and be legitimate contributors on this team on a night to night basis, not like Patrick Williams, everybody's hurt, so all of a sudden you drop 40 points. No, do go in with that mindset every single night. You should feel like you're the best player on the floor every night because you're the youngest and most talented player on the team.
Yes, and the third storyline is and Vucevic kind of talked about it at his representing Montenegro at the FIBA World Cup. He has a feeling, and we kind of all feel this way, like yo, for this trio, for the DeMar Zach Vooch trio, like yo, this is it. This is the last shot. If it don't work this year, and the definition of work is very vague, this is
Well,
it.
and I think the other storyline, even though it's not really a storyline, is Lonzo Ball. I think the Bulls are going to get a insurance contract out of him, so they'll have a $10 million contract to use. I don't think the Bulls have filed for that yet, but I don't know what they're waiting for. But
No,
yeah,
I also think so. Here's what I think about that. I think sometimes you gotta let sleeping dogs lie, and what I mean by that is Stephen A. Smith out there running his mouth talking about some he heard from doctors, his doctors. First off, that's a HIPAA violation of all sorts. That his doctors told Stephen A. that he has trouble getting up and down from the sit down position, and Lonzo came out with a video doing one leg squats up and down out of a chair. Now I don't know about you, I got two good knees and I can't do that.
I can't do that either.
And so
But that wouldn't affect Lonzo Ball at all. Like they've already announced he's not playing this season. It's like the Bulls
no,
could
they
be
say
like,
he's not. They say he's not playing at the start of the season. He's coming back. Like if he makes progress by like January, like they're hoping, he's coming back.
okay, I we'll see. I think that's one of those other storylines too. Like, what do the Bulls eventually do with Lonzo Ball? But that's kind of another
Yeah,
offseason conversation.
that's something else. And all it's just
Moving on.
it's just one of those like what's the word I'm looking for? It's just another one bites the dust. Like the Bulls have not had that quality point guard. Like we just haven't had luck at that position.
It's true. Moving on from there, let's talk about best and worst case scenario for this Chicago Bulls team. What do you think best case scenario for this Bulls as currently constructed?
As kind of like the Cavs, second round, make the playoffs, get a favorable first round matchup, make it to the second round, run into like a Philly or Milwaukee and get bounced in the second round. Worst case scenario, just like last season, play in the worst and blow the shit up. In some variation, another rebuild is coming. Right, we
I
know
agree
that.
with you. I think the best case scenario for this Chicago Bulls team is that they're a play-in team. Whether or not they make the playoffs as a play-in team, that's to be decided later. But I just don't think that they're better than the top 6 seeds in the Eastern Conference. I don't think they're better than Milwaukee, Boston. I still don't think they're better than Philadelphia with all their turmoil. I don't think they're better than Cavs. I don't think they're better than Knicks. I don't think they're better than the Hawks or Heat. I just do not think that they will be a legitimate. I think they're a play-in team at best. Their worst case scenario, they're a bottom 5 team in the Eastern Conference and they missed the playoffs entirely.
Well, yeah. First off, they better than the Hawks. The Hawks don't even know what the hell they are. They still don't know what they are.
Okay.
When you spend the Hawks, come on, like not better than the Hawks by what, a game?
Yeah, I mean, they're probably one game worse than the Hawks, but I just named 7 teams that I think are better than the Bulls right now. I didn't even include Brooklyn, who I also think is going to be better than the Bulls.
And Brooklyn got out to a good start because they still had KD.
Yeah, but Mikal Bridges, the Cameron Johnson, I like those guys.
Let's see what Mikal Bridges, and no disrespect to them, but let's see what Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and them do for a 482. Not you ride KD for a hot start then trade him mid-season.
True.
Right? Like, come on.
Like, I also think we'll talk about Orlando at some point, but I think Orlando is going to be interesting next season.
Man, we'll get to them, but you already know how I feel about the young teams. Time to grow up. Come on now.
Moving on from there, let's talk about another young team. We got the Indiana Pacers, who got off to a really good start last season. They kind of fizzled with some injuries down the stretch. Obviously, they have Tyrese Halliburton, first-time All-Star last season. Benedict Mathurin was a first-team All-Rookie, I think, last year. Buddy Hield, fun fact of the draft class that he's in, he's the number 1 scorer in that draft class, which I found wild because that does include Jaylen Brown. Drake Walker, Miles Turner, then key reserves, CJ McConnell, Andrew Nembhard, Bruce Brown, Obi Toppin, who they got as a steal from the New York Knicks, Jalen Smith, Aaron Nesmith.
He's a steal now. You
based
ain't
on what
like
they get.
Obi Toppin with the Knicks. Come on, bro.
But,
Don't
but
call
but
him no.
based on what they gave up to get him, dude, it's he has upside still. Like if they can untap that some of that potential, like they gave up like a second round pick for him. Jordan Nwora and then Isaiah Jackson. Rick Carlisle is the head coach of this team. They were 35 and 47 last year. Season storylines. What are we looking at?
Try, like obviously because like you're one of the younger teams in the league. I mean I don't care what nobody say. Like I understand that you paid them, but folks are still going to be calling about Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. Like they still going to be calling about them
I
too.
mean, they haven't paid Buddy Hield. Like he's still. I think he's going into his last year of his contract.
Like they
Yeah,
still
yeah.
they still going to be calling about them two dudes.
And Miles Turner only has this year and next year on his contract currently. Who do you think is the highest paid player on the Indiana Pacers next season? Who do you think it is?
It's Halliburton. Don't his contract kick
It's
in?
not. His extension doesn't kick in until next season. So he's the he's one, two. He's the eighth highest paid player on the team right now.
Well, be
Ninth.
Bruce
Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown is
Bruce
the
Brown?
highest paid. Bruce Brown is the highest paid player on this team today. He's making $22 million next season. Miles Turner's making 21. Buddy Hield's making 19. Nobody else on the team is making over 10 million this season.
Ain't that something? But yeah, teams are gonna be calling about Buddy Hield, Miles Turner until they blue in the face. So obviously, I think for this Pacer team, you may not want to hear it if you're Rick Carlisle because like certain expectations that you have. But if I'm the Pacer team, like, hey, the East is kind of weak. It's not that hard to be a play-in team in the East. Right? It's kind of what you want to be if you're this variation at the Indiana Pacers. So yeah, season storyline. Can we take that step forward? Like 35-47. Can we improve our win total by what 8 games? 40,
Yeah,
like yeah,
I mean
something like
that's
that.
yeah. I mean, if you win 40 games, you're probably in the play-in conversation. Only if you win 5 more games, you're in the play-in conversation. Let's not forget. I mean, this team was in the hunt for like a top 5 seed at one point. And Tyrese Halliburton gets hurt, misses some time last season, and that's kind of all she wrote.
Another storyline, can bringing them up, Tyrese Halliburton, can he keep this all-star level play up? Right, he's over with Team USA in the FIBA World Cup, hooping over there. You kind of see players that hoop internationally for their first time and then come back to the NBA for the season. They kind of have a quote unquote breakout season or a like you see the game translates because it's a different game playing FIBA versus the NBA.
I'm scared to see what Anthony Edwards is going to look like next season.
Hey, talk to
like, dude's been shredding it for that team.
can Benedict Mathurin take steps as that sophomore player? Don't fall into the sophomore slump like how we seen Scotty Barnes fall into. Right.
And Jarris Walker's a rookie, but they're going to be expecting legitimate role for you this season.
I wouldn't even necessarily call him a starter the whole time. No, like that's just me though. Like I Rick Carlisle. I mean maybe he is a starter, but like it's again Rick Carlisle is an old school vet head coach. It takes a lot to impress him.
Well, the only other option would be Obi Toppin, and I guess Obi Toppin could potentially start for this team, but I think they're going to go with the rookie. That's kind of just a straight prediction.
I wouldn't be surprised if they came out super small with Bruce Brown. I would not be surprised at that at all.
Yeah, that's true. I also could see that as well. I don't. That would be very tiny, but the NBA, I mean, size is.
I can see them starting Jalen Smith, but I think Jalen Smith is Miles Turner's backup, so never mind on that one.
He's also not been that good. I don't think you want to start him. So let's talk about best and worst case scenario when it comes to the Indiana Pacers. I think their best case scenario for Indiana is they're a play-in team this season.
Yeah,
I think that's probably their best case scenario. I think they're just a play-in team. Worst case scenario, I think they're also a play-in team is their worst case scenario. I think this team's floor and ceiling are about the same. Like, as long as you have Tyrese Halliburton and the younger players take us another step forward, and Bruce Brown continues to be like a good leader on this locker room, and Obi Toppin gets to really showcase what he's capable of on the basketball court, I think their best and worst case scenario is the same. I think the ceiling and the floor is playing.
I think they floor is what they are now, 35-47. Missed the playoffs again, because again, like you never know what's gonna happen, right? Play people like you said it. They were in the race. All it takes is one injury to derail, mess up everything, right? All it like not even just an injury. Like let's just say everybody's healthy, and they just have a terrible 10-game stretch where they go like 3-7, 2-8. You go on a 6-game losing streak. That that'll mess it up worse than the injury.
It's true. Moving on from Indiana, let's talk about the final team in the Central. We got the Detroit Pistons. Their starting lineup: Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Zara Thompson, Bojan Bogdanovic, and Jalen Duren. Key reserves: Monte Morris, Alec Burks, Joe Harris, Isaiah Stewart, James Wiseman, Marvin Bagley III, Killian Hayes, Isaiah Livers, Marcus Sasser, and Jared Roden. Monty Williams, new head coach of this basketball team, highest paid coach in the NBA right now currently. They were 17-65 last season. Let's talk some storylines when it comes to Detroit.
All right, storylines for Detroit. One, Cade Cunningham, got to stay healthy. This is year 3 for him? He ain't played a full 82.
And I don't even think he's played a full 60.
I don't think he's right. Hey, good catch on that. I don't think he's played 60.
Like I think the Pistons would kill for him to play even 60 games. Like I don't think he played a lot of games as a rookie. Like, and then he played 5 games last year, 12 last year.
Like, all right, second.
He played. All right, he played 64 his rookie season, so that's it shouldn't be so disrespectful.
No, like it's rightly so because he was hurt his rookie year. He got hurt his rookie year.
Yeah, he started the season injured, then came back. He was pretty solid as a rookie, though. I mean, his splits and his percentages are all pretty solid. 31% from 3, 41% from the field, 17 points a game.
That is terrible. That is not solid. 31% from 3 is not good at all. Okay. That is terrible.
It's not. His splits even got worse in his second season. Those 12 games he played. So,
like, come on, bro. Like that's 2 threes away from 29%, bro. Like that is terrible. Like, come on. That's terrible.
Fair enough.
Second storyline is all right, Monty Williams. How do you adapt or adjust from going to championship content? You went from championship contender to bottom feeder. How do you adjust? Like, how do you adjust your expectations to that? All right, you went from having a vet ladled roster to one of, if not the youngest roster.
This probably is the youngest roster in the NBA right now. I mean, based on their starting lineup.
I mean, it's between them and Houston, right?
Yeah.
So like,
even Oklahoma City is still pretty young.
For the most part. So like, yeah, how do you, Monty Williams? Like, how do you table those expectations? Like, because folks don't care that this team is young. They're thinking, hey, we're getting Monty Williams. We got a coach that's been to the finals. We got a coach that's been to the playoffs for the bulk of his coaching career. That's what they think. Like, they think Monty Williams equals playoffs for the Detroit Pistons. And sorry, Pistons fans, that's not gonna be the case.
Yeah, and I think another big storyline outside of the Monty Williams thing, I think this log jam they have in the bigs position, right? So you have
a hell of a log jam, ain't it?
I mean, Jalen Duren was a first-round pick last year. You obviously invested in him. He's probably the starter. Was solid as a rookie. You also have James Wiseman, who you traded for. You also have Marvin Bagley III, who you traded for. You have Isaiah Stewart on this team, who's also another big, who's been okay as a pro in this league so far. And probably should start at power forward over Bogdanovic, unless you're trying to showcase him so you can trade him away, because I think that's coming at some point this season. But they have just so many bigs. It's like you have to decide which of these guys you want to really invest in the future. I think Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart are the two guys I would pick. But I think there's untapped potential in James Wiseman. I think Marvin Bagley still has some upside and still has some promise. He was good there, like after they traded for him 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing for the two of them. I honestly, again, like that, what happened to him in Sacramento should be like 100% should be investigated. Like I never understood that. Like obviously, like the guys that was making those decisions are no longer there, and that goes without being like those guys are out of the league, and Marvin Bagley's still in it. So somebody's vindicated on that front. Um, yeah, I agree. Like it's a on one hand it's a good quote unquote good problem to have, right? When you have too many players, but at the same time, it's a bad thing to have because how long before one of those guys become quote unquote disgruntled, unhappy because they're not seeing the floor, especially when you got a dude like and Isaiah Stewart, like don't get me wrong, who's turning himself into a nice player, but he's undersized for the position. How long before you got a James Wiseman or a Marvin Bagley to get frustrated and be like, I'm better than him. Like I am so much better than him that it's not even funny. That
Well, based on their production and the actual games, I'm not so sure they can make that argument. But
Like also Isaiah Stewart's like dude's a hot head. Like I
yeah,
understand
it's true.
I understand maybe just that one incident, but it's the incident, bro. Like you tried to get Buck in charge at LeBron James over some incidental contact. Like, bro, relax.
It was like one of those things where you're trying to make a name for yourself, but like you just look stupid.
You just look stupid. Like you look so stupid. It's like, okay, oh, I caught you with an elbow, my bad. Then you start bleeding. Now you want to act all big and bad, like, oh, I'm finna go get LeBron. Like, no, knock it off, bro. I think another storyline is like outside of that, like not just Kay Cunningham, but Killian Hayes. This is another first round pick. This was another lottery pick. What's
Yeah,
like
he's
what do you do with
he's
him?
buried on the depth chart right now. He's the third point guard on this team. I think he's a non-factor on this team. Go moving forward. I think if they could get anything worthwhile for him, they trade him away.
And that's kind of what that's kind of like. No, I think they're gonna do like because again, I bring up that clip with Bradley Beal talking to his AAU team multiple times. He's like, they like when teams can't find a trade chip for you, they say, you know what, we would rather pay you to stay away. We will give you all the money that's left on your contract and say bye.
Well, this is his last year of his contract. It's they picked up his player option, which is pretty shocking given how he's been on the floor. But he did have his best season as a pro last year, averaging 10 points a game. Woeful shooting percentages at 37% and 28% from the field.
Terrible. Like and Monty Williams again. Monty Williams, he's not gonna sugarcoat nothing. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Like
I mean,
before, like,
the head coach they had before doesn't strike me as a sugarcoating kind of guy.
what is it? Dwayne Casey was it Dwayne
Yeah,
Casey.
Dwayne Casey. Dwayne Casey.
Well, Dwayne Casey. Like, when you win Coach of the Year, you still get fired. You
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
it's kind of stuff.
Dwayne Casey doesn't strike me as a guy who messes around.
Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I understand. Like, you can't. Like, you gotta handle each team differently. Like, you can't say certain things to a young roster like this that you can say to a championship level roster like he had in Phoenix. And don't get me wrong, like I know Monty Williams, like they had some lean years in Phoenix, right? Especially under him. Like you had that one year with the bubble, they won every game. They still didn't make the playoffs in the bubble, which is why I don't even get me started on that. I don't even know why they were there. Because I brought that up. I'm like, yo, Phoenix could win every game and they would still miss it, and that's exactly what happened. It's if he got his work cut out for him. Like, I know he got like what was like a 6-year contract or something like
Yeah,
that.
he's the highest paid. He's got the highest paid contract. He's got a 6-year deal. It's a
Like
long.
this is one of those situations like kind of like how we saw with the 49ers when they hired Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. Like, yo, this is not a all right, this is year 3. We don't see no progress. I'm finna fire y'all. Like, no, like this is it's called a process for a reason,
Yep.
right? So I'm just gonna go right into it. Like, all right, so like best case scenario, right? Like you go from 17 wins. If you go from 17 wins and you somehow get to like 40 wins and you still miss the playoffs, damn it, that's a W. We talked about this when they made the hire. When they first when they broke the news that they hired him, I'm like, if they go from 17 to 40, That's a W. That's a good season for them.
Yeah, 100%. But I don't think that's even close to the ceiling. I think if
What if
they
they?
can
All
get to
right. So what if they?
if they can get to like 35 wins, where like the
Oh, okay. I was just
Wizards,
about to say like, what if they like double up? What if they go? What if they just like
yeah,
double
if
up their
they
win total?
their ceiling, I think, is doubling their win total, getting to like 34 wins, getting to where the Magic are, the Wizards and the Pacers that were last season. I think their bottom, the floor, is exactly what they are now. They don't really
17 and
figure out.
65.
They don't figure out these big log jam. They don't. Kate Cunningham doesn't stay healthy. Jaden Ivey doesn't develop. Azar Thompson doesn't play well or gets hurt or something of that nature, which you never wish on anyone. But
Right.
the bottom of the Pistons outlook is 17 wins, if not worse.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we'll see. Let us know down in the comment section what you think about the 2023 Central Division.
Well,
I
because I
still
just
think Milwaukee is the best team in this division by
yeah, it's
far.
not even close. It's not even close. Like, but I just think that when you look at this, when you look at this division, like when you go back 30 years and you look at how good these teams, like there was a legit stretch in the NBA where all five of these teams were some of the best teams in the league. Cleveland was good under Mark Price and Brad Daugherty. You already know what the Bulls did. The Pistons were a constant in everybody's side. The Bucks were decent, and the Pacers were good.
Yep.
We've come to a stretch, an era where it's just one team, like, and each team has had quote unquote they run at it, right? Like the Pacers in the early 2000s, they were the team to beat in the division. The Pistons in the mid 2000s with the with Bad Boys 2.0 with Ben Wallace and the crew,
Tayshaun
right?
Prince.
LeBron them, like LeBron when he come, like they winning 50, 60 games a year. And then the Bulls in 2010 when LeBron leaves, they run the division. Like the Bucks had seasons here and there, same with the Pacers under what is his name? Why is his name escaping me?
Frank Vogel.
Yeah, under Frank Vogel with young Paul George and Roy Hibbert. And like it's getting to a point where especially like the Pistons and the Bulls, it's like, hey, y'all are quote unquote basketball royalty.
It's true.
Figure this shit out.
100%. But yeah, this has been our 2023-2024 Central Division preview. Tomorrow is the start of the NFL season. You guys all just enjoy whatever happens in the NFL
there is
season.
no
tomorrow.
show tomorrow. There
will be no show tomorrow, so you guys all enjoy the football action. I've been David Huppman. Right there is my co-host, Mr. TJ Hopkins. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. TJ, what do we do here at the Prime, my friend?
We bring the heat, and I just want to before we go, I just want to give a quick shout out to the Colorado Buffaloes, upset over TCU, ranked 22nd in the country after winning one game last season. And also shout out to the Cubs, man, 1.5 game back in the division league. They are like 32-14 since the All-Star break. They are one of the best teams in baseball right now. This is like absolutely the best time to get hot if you're a baseball team. Because the hunt for October has already been starting, and the marathon is down to a sprint.
Yep.
Because we are coming to a close with the baseball. With baseball. Shout out to you
all take care out there and enjoy opening night of the National Football League. We'll see you guys probably next week at some point. I know Izzy's doing the.
Hey, what kind of wings you getting?
I always get half medium super wet and half Parmesan garlic super wet. And then I usually mix those two flavors together at one point.
You do boneless, or you just get
boneless. Because Buffalo Islands has buy one get one free boneless on Thursdays.
Okay.
So
man, they still do that?
To go, dude. You can,
I thought they stopped that.
No, it's still a thing. So you guys all take care and be safe out there and enjoy opening night at the National Football League. We'll be back next week.
See you, man.